Yo, what's going on, guys? It's the Draft Nerd, and today we are going to be reacting to CBS's Tyler Sullivan's newest mock draft. Now, it dropped 6 hours ago, so I have not seen it, but it does look like he's going to be having the New York Jets trade up with the Titans to take a quarterback. But besides that, I'm going into this completely blind, so let's get into it. He does have the New York Jets trading up to number 1 and selecting Cam Ward, the quarterback out of Miami. Now, do I think this is a possibility? Yeah, of course I do. The Jets are a QB needy team, especially if, Aaron Rodgers decides to retire and or move on from the Jets, which is looking more and more likely. The thing is with me though, I don't think the Jets need to be in that big of a hurry to get a franchise quarterback. If they don't get a quarterback this year, in the first round at least, they could go into next season with Tyrod Taylor, probably aren't going to be that good of a team, and then go and look to draft a quarterback in next year's draft where it looks to be a little bit more talented. You got guys like Arch Manning, Lenore Sellers, Nico from Tennessee, Garrett Nussmeier who returned, Drew Aller. There's a lot of quarterbacks that seem to be better than what we got in this year's draft. So, with that being said, I don't necessarily love the move. I don't think they, tell you what they just gave up. I would assume it was this year's first and maybe even next year's first to just trade up to get him. And I'm not a big fan of that. I would much rather, just wait, maybe draft Jalen Milroe or Jackson Dart in the second, third round maybe, and then, go into next season like that. But I just don't like trading up and, giving assets away to get a guy like Cam Ward. Not the biggest fan, but I do think it's definitely a possibility. Moving on to number 2, we got the Cleveland Browns going Mason Graham, the defensive tackle out of Michigan. And now Mason Graham's a hell of a football player, and that's 100% certain. But, will Myles Garrett get traded? Will he not get traded? Either way, besides Myles Garrett, if they do decide to keep him, who else do they have? Isaiah McGuire would be their next best edge rusher. That's not going to get the job done. Obviously, they could try to get someone in free agency, of course, but even if they do decide to keep Myles Garrett, I still think Abdul Carter would be the pick, because if Myles Garrett does stay, he's going to want another really good edge rusher, across from him, or, on the other side of him, so that way it takes a little bit of the attention off of him. So, either way, whether they trade him or not, I do think this pick should be either Shedeur Sanders, the quarterback, or Abdul Carter, the edge rusher. On to number 3, we got the New York Giants passing on Shedeur Sanders or any quarterback, and they're going to go with Travis Hunter, the receiver / cornerback out of Colorado. Now, look, I'm a Giants fan, and for me, it's really hard to buy into Shedeur Sanders at number 3 overall. It really, really is. I know the circumstances, and, Joe Schoen and Brian Daboll, they're fighting for their lives, to keep their job in New York, so they're most likely going to take a Shedeur Sanders. But if, in a vacuum, I would much rather take a Travis Hunter. The Giants need a number 1 cornerback because Tay Banks is not a number 1 cornerback. I would be fine with him being the CB2 in New York, but you still need that alpha cornerback, and I think Travis Hunter could provide that. And then he can also play, 10 to 15 snaps on offense, with, Malik Neighbors, and then, maybe get a quarterback in day 2 like a Jalen Milroe, Jackson Dart, or, just put it off for one more year. Who knows? Maybe get a Kirk Cousins or Sam Darnold in free agency, Justin Fields. There's options for the Giants if they don't want to take Shedeur Sanders, but it's looking more and more likely that that will be the case. But, I'm not mad at the Travis Hunter pick either. On to number 4, we got the Patriots still passing on Abdul Carter and going with offensive tackle. He's listed at Will Campbell out of LSU. A lot of people think Will Campbell is going to have to slide into guard. He doesn't have the length. He doesn't have the quickness. This, that. I think Will Campbell is a good offensive lineman. Whether he plays tackle, guard, he's a really good offensive lineman. If you're going to take him at 4 over a guy like Abdul Carter, you're going to want him to play tackle. And, will he be able to play tackle? Yes. Will he be worth that number 4 overall pick? Who knows? You might have to push him into guard if he doesn't work out. But the Patriots they obviously need offensive line help for sure, but they also could use edge rush help. They have Keon White and no one else. So getting an Abdul Carter would probably be my choice. Get a, absolute stud, maybe borderline generational prospect in an Abdul Carter, and then try to fix the offensive line issue in free agency or in day 2 of the draft. I don't think there's an offensive lineman worth taking with the 4th overall pick. That's just me though. On to number 5, we finally got Abdul Carter going off the board to the Jacksonville Jaguars. If he somehow falls to number 5 to the Jaguars, yes, 100% take Abdul Carter. I know you have Josh Hines-Allen, I know you have Trayvon Walker, but you can't pass on a guy like Abdul Carter here at 5. More than likely, it'll have the Browns going Abdul Carter, and then Mason Graham typically falls to number 5, and he's definitely a better fit. You have Josh Hines-Allen, Trayvon Walker, Rick Armstead, and then Mason Graham to complete that defensive line. That's a much more sexier, lineup. But if Mason Graham's off the board, Abdul Carter is on the board, you still take him. I could see a Will Johnson as well, although it seems like the NFL is a little bit lower on him. But, I could also see a Will Johnson, maybe, I don't know. I think that's the only other option here, really. I mean, you could go with a Tetairoa McMillan to pair up alongside Brian Thomas, who they took last year. That's also definitely a really solid option. But if Abdul Carter falls, take him here at 5. You got to. You can't pass up on him. On to number 6, we got the Raiders going with Shedeur Sanders. And, this is a little bit more of my comfortability when it comes to taking a Shedeur Sanders. It's 6 overall, still a little bit steep in my opinion. Yes, I think he's closer to a back end of the first round guy if you take out positional value. Obviously, Shedeur Sanders is going to go top 10. He's probably going to go number 3 to the Giants, but going to the Raiders is also a really solid choice. He's got Brock Bowers, Jacoby Myers to throw to, probably a better offensive line than New York has, which Shedeur Sanders would want. Like, he suffered badly with Colorado's offensive line the past 2 years. Coming into Vegas and having at least a decent offensive line is probably a little enticing for Shedeur Sanders, but if I was fully predicting this mock draft, I don't think Shedeur Sanders falls to pick 6. That's just my opinion. Now we're going to have the Tennessee Titans, who traded back to number 7 with the Jets, and they still are able to get Tetairoa McMillan, the receiver out of Arizona. Obviously, if they don't want to go quarterback, their second biggest need probably is receiver. They have Calvin Ridley, who just isn't a wide receiver 1. Getting a guy like Tetairoa McMillan can be that big X receiver. Now, I assume this probably means they're either going to get a quarterback in free agency or, roll into next year with Will Levis. That's definitely uncertain, but you're able to get draft capital by trading down to the 7th overall pick, and you still get a really, really good player at Tetairoa McMillan at number 7. I like that. If they don't feel sold on a Cam Ward or a Shedeur Sanders, trade out of that number 1 spot. Get some draft capital. You're not the most talented team on paper to begin with, so try to get draft capital and then still take a really good player at number 7, like a Tetairoa McMillan. I like that for the Titans a lot if they don't want to go quarterback. On to number 8, we got the Carolina Panthers taking Jalen Walker. They have him listed as an edge rusher from Georgia. Now, Jalen Walker obviously played a little bit of a hybrid role, off-ball linebacker / edge rusher. I definitely do like him a lot more at edge rusher. But, when you still got guys like James Pierce on the board, Mike Green on the board still, I think they're more safer picks than a Jalen Walker is. From the few edge rush snaps that he got, he looked like a good edge rusher. I think Jalen Walker's a first-round pick undoubtedly. But if you're going for an edge rusher, like the Carolina Panthers seem to be doing here, get a James Pierce or a Mike Green. I think they're safer picks, and I think they're a little bit more what they're looking for. And I can see here, they're comparing him probably to like a Frankie Louvu role, which, yes, Frankie Louvu did play off-ball linebacker / edge rusher for them, but I really think they need pass rush help. That's the top of their list, in my opinion, and I think James Pierce Jr. and or a Mike Green would be a better fit for that specific pass rush role. On to number 9, we got the 49ers going Kelvin Banks Jr., the tackle out of Texas, and I feel like Kelvin Banks Jr. is kind of been slept on here lately. I see him going a lot in the back end of the first round, instead of the top 10 where, I think he could go. And, with the 49ers, right tackle's up in the air. They could draft him to play right tackle, or they could just draft him to, eventually be that left tackle replacement for a Trent Williams. He's obviously not going to be playing for much longer. He had a banged up season last year. Probably not going to be playing much longer. Try to get that replacement in a Kelvin Banks Jr. Some people also think Kelvin Banks Jr. is a guard. I think that Kelvin Banks is more of a tackle than Will Campbell is, but that's just me. Regardless, I like the pick here, getting offensive lineman, probably to play right tackle year 1 and then be that eventual left tackle replacement in year 2, 3, 4, whenever that does happen. On to number 10, we got the Chicago Bears going Armand Membu, the tackle out of Missouri. And obviously, we don't know what the Bears are going to do in free agency, if they're going to fix the offensive line through free agency, or if they're going to do it here. Oh, and I didn't even realize, the 49ers don't even pick at number 9, so they had them trading with the Saints to jump up to number 9 to take Kelvin Banks. Still a good pick. I'm fine with that as well. But back to number 10 with the Bears, they need more so guard than they do tackle. Let's see what they have here. He's under 6'4", which is concerning for your tackle. He has a 34-inch arms with an 81-inch wingspan, and if you don't know, those check boxes for tackle. Okay, so it looks like he's drafting him to play tackle for the Bears. And the Bears could use tackle, but they desperately need guard and center help the most. Either way, I think Armand Membu is a versatile piece. He could play guard or tackle for him. And with Ben Johnson being the head coach, he's going to want to fix that offensive line as fast as he can. And drafting Armand Membu does fix that, or at least help to fix that. On to number 11, after trading down a spot, we got the New Orleans Saints taking Shamar Stewart, the defensive lineman out of Texas A&M. And, Shamar Stewart doesn't have the gaudy numbers, the sack numbers or anything like that. But he really performed well at the Senior Bowl. He's a freak of nature. I mean, I'm probably the biggest fan of Shamar Stewart you're going to see on YouTube. So I think this pick is a really good pick. You could also look to go, if you're going to go with edge rusher or pass rusher in general, I think you could look to go with a James Pierce Jr. or Mike Green as well, who have, maybe better production. But I like Shamar Stewart. I think they need to get defensive line help. I'm just glad that we didn't get a Michael Williams here, because I think Michael Williams is getting a little bit too much hype. I like guys like Shamar Stewart or some edge rushers like James Pierce Jr. and or a Mike Green a little bit better than a Michael Williams. So I'm just glad to not see Michael Williams here for the Saints. Number 12, we got the Cowboys going Ashton Jeanty. You've probably heard YouTubers talk about that, to nauseum. So I'm not going to break down this pick. It's a good pick. Cowboys need running back. Ashton Jeanty is a really good running back. On to number 13, we got the Miami Dolphins going Luther Burden, the receiver out of Missouri. And a lot of people are a little bit lower on Luther Burden now because he didn't have the best 2024 season. I think that was a lot to do with the offense and the quarterback specifically. And so I don't necessarily knock Luther Burden for having a lackluster season. As you see, only, under 700 receiving yards, 8 touchdowns. I still think he's a first-round player. I still think he's at top end of the first-round player, like we have him here at 13. And Tyreek Hill has talked about either wanting to leave Miami or, retiring soon. So the Dolphins are going to need to get another player in the building. You got a Jalen Waddle. The Dolphins obviously like speed. Luther Burden is probably one of, if not the fastest players in the draft at the receiver position. So I think this fit makes sense. But is it their biggest need? Maybe not. They obviously like going skill positions, running back, receiver, tight end, things like that. But I really think they need to get offensive line here. You still have a Josh Simmons still on the board. You still got like a Tyler Booker if you want to go interior. You got a Gray Zabel. So there's offensive lineman options. I'd like to see them go offensive lineman more than I would like to see them go Luther Burden. But I like to see Luther Burden getting the love that he does deserve, in my opinion. 14. This is kind of becoming Ashton Jeanty to the Cowboys pick. We got Tyler Warren to the Colts. Colts could use a tight end. Anthony Richardson needs more weapons to throw to. Tyler Warren's the best tight end prospect in the draft. I think he's better than Colston Loveland. He can block. He can, he can run up the seam. He can, do things after the catch. He's a full package when it comes to tight end. That's exactly what the Colts would want. Good pick. In every mock draft, they're going to have Colts going Tyler Warren. 15, we got the Atlanta Falcons going Mike Green, the edge rusher out of Marshall. And I really like this pick a lot. If Mike Green does fall to 15 to the Falcons, I think they run this pick into the podium. Mike Green has had an amazing offseason draft process so far. Really good Senior Bowl. I think he's going to do well at the Combine as well, which is in a couple days. So, I think Mike Green, maybe come April, this might be, kind of a Mike Green has fallen to 15. So he might not even be here for the Falcons to take, but if he is here, Falcons desperately need pass rush help. Mike Green's one of the best pass rushers in the draft, especially one of the best that's still on the board. So I like that pick a lot. I usually always go edge rusher for the Falcons. That's their biggest need by far. On to 16, we got the Arizona Cardinals going Walter Nolan, the defensive tackle out of Ole Miss. Another guy who had a really good Senior Bowl, really good season at Ole Miss. I think he's a really good pass rusher at that defensive tackle position. And I think the Cardinals are going to look to go trenches, whether that's offensive line or defensive line. I could see them going either way, but I do think it will be a trenches pick. They took Darius Robinson last year, who, didn't have the best rookie season. He was banged up for a lot of it, but they'll be getting Darius Robinson in year 2, Walter Nolan to be the, his partner beside him. They'll get B.J. Ojulari back from, I believe it was his torn ACL that happened in training camp. So they'll quickly be able to build that really young, good defensive line. So I like that pick a lot. On to 17, we got another defensive tackle, and the Bengals going Kenneth Grant, the defensive tackle out of Michigan. With the Bengals, you could look to go receiver, maybe. I mean, they're probably going to lose T. Higgins to free agency, so, I could see that. But besides that, they need to go best player available on the defensive side of the ball. I could see this being a James Pierce pick. I think Malachi Starks is still on the board. Benjamin Morrison, if his, hip injury checks out. Will Johnson's still on the board, surprisingly. I'd probably go Will Johnson here, but, Kenneth Grant's also a really solid option. They need to be able to stop the run. Kenneth Grant can do that at a high level. He's also an athletic freak who could develop a good pass rush moveset, once he gets into the league and, develops a little bit on an NFL team. So I like Kenneth Grant a lot, but realizing that Will Johnson's still on the board, I would probably go that over a Kenneth Grant. On to number 18, we got the Seahawks going Tyler Booker. If this was a what I would do mock draft, I would probably do this pick. I really like Tyler Booker. I think he's a first round pick. Seahawks need help at both guard positions. The only problem is the Seahawks GM does not value guard at all. He says that he doesn't like paying him. He doesn't like drafting him in the first round. So will this happen come draft day? Most likely not, because of those comments made. But the Seahawks need guard help. Tyler Booker's probably the best pure guard in the class. I see this happening for sure if this was what I would do, but I just don't see this happening in real life just because they don't value the position. 19, we got the Buccaneers going Malachi Starks, the safety out of Georgia. And, Malachi Starks is a really good safety, but he is a safety, and so that's why he's falling here to 19. And while the Bucs could use safety help for sure, they also could really use pass rush help. And with a James Pierce still on the board, I think he could be a selection here. I'm trying to think if there's any other edge rushers I could see going here. Maybe a Nick Scorton as well. And I'm not trying to knock Malachi Starks. I just think that it's not the biggest need for the Buccaneers. But you got to find a spot for Malachi Starks to go, because he will go in the first round. He's a really good prospect, but it's just hard to find a fit for him. Coming in at number 20, we got the Broncos going Colston Loveland. This is a pretty popular pick as well. Colston Loveland is a really good receiving tight end. Sean Payton loves really good receiving tight ends. Although he's not got the size of a guy like Jimmy Graham, who Sean Payton loved in New Orleans, he is a really good receiving target. Sean Payton loves to incorporate tight ends into his offense quite a bit. There's not a good tight end on the Broncos roster as of right now. It makes perfect sense to me. If he's on the board at 20, take him. 21, we got the Steelers going Will Johnson. Now, I'm going to talk about this for a little bit. As in terms of fit and value, Steelers, this is a home run pick, 100%. I just want to talk about how it seems the NFL is not as high on a Will Johnson. If you look strictly at last year's tape, sure, maybe he is only a 21 overall type of player. But if you take into account his entire Michigan career, especially that 2023 tape, he's a top 5 player in this draft. He, dealt with injuries last year, wasn't the best for Michigan, but if you look at his last fully healthy season in 2023, he's a top 5 player in basically any draft. So having him fall to 21, I'm just not I don't think it'll happen. I know the NFL seems to not be high on him. They have questions on his long speed and things like that, but his man-to-man ability as well. I think he's a really good cornerback prospect, and if he comes in his rookie season fully healthy, I think a lot of people are going to be like, how did Will Johnson fall to 21, or how did he fall out of the top 10? So I really think he's worth a top 10 pick. Here at 21, the Steelers need a cornerback to go alongside Joey Porter. So a home run of a pick for the Steelers. I really don't think he's going to fall here this far in the draft. 22, we got the Chargers going Mykel Williams. Again, I'm not the biggest fan of Mykel Williams. I think he's going to go in the first round for sure. Would I take him in the first round? Maybe not. But, in terms of fit to the Chargers here, this is a really good fit. Joey Bosa isn't what he once was. Khalil Mack's a free agent. They got Tuitui Pelotu, who I like a lot, but he's more of a rotational guy. Mykel Williams, an athletic freak at 6'5", 265. I think he could fit well with a Jim Harbaugh led team. So I like this fit a lot, but again, just not the highest on a Mykel Williams. I want to see at least some production from a college football player, and Mykel Williams did not have much production. I know he was injured last season as well, but just his whole Georgia career didn't have much production. 23, we got the Green Bay Packers going Derek Harmon, the defensive tackle out of Oregon. I like that pick a lot. The Packers love going trenches. They took Lucas Van Ness a couple of years ago, who's looking like a bust, but they always value trenches on the defensive side of the ball. Derek Harmon's probably one of the better trenches players still on the board, so it makes a lot of sense to me. Do I think they could go somewhere else? Probably, but they'll probably go trenches again. 24, we got the Vikings going Jahdae Barron, the cornerback out of Texas. Vikings need a cornerback. I believe Byron Murphy is a free agent. They just don't really have many bodies in that secondary room right now. Jahdae Barron did really well at outside corner for Texas this past year. But I think his best work is going to be in the slot. And so, do you take a slot player, 24 overall? Maybe not. So, will the Vikings probably try him out at outside corner? Yes. But worst case scenario, he'll have to move into slot corner and be, one of the better slot players, with the likes of a Cooper DeJean and a Brian Branch. So, either way, I don't think this is going to be a bad pick. He has a super high floor, in my opinion. 25, we got the Houston Texans going Gray Zabel. They need trenches help they need offensive line help pretty badly. Got to protect CJ Stroud. Gray Zabel had an amazing Senior Bowl. He's been rising up people's draft boards since then. So I could see him going back into the first round. Texans need a guard. Boom, match made in heaven. 26, we got the this is the Rams pick, right? 26, that's where the Rams pick. I don't know why I have Ohio State logo right there. This is the Rams pick, I do believe. Yeah, from the Los. Yeah, okay. I assume this is the Rams pick. The Rams need offensive tackle help. Rob Havenstein is a good player. He's up there in age. Alaric Jackson's a free agent. If a guy like Josh Simmons is still on the board, you take him. I know he tore his ACL. Got to wait for the medicals to come back, but if he checks all medicals, he's a first-round player. You need a tackle, go ahead and take him here. 27, we got the Ravens going James Pierce Jr. I love this pick a lot. If he does fall to the Ravens here, I think they got to take him. The thing with me, a lot of people are saying, the Ravens let up a lot of pass yards last year, a lot of pass yards. They got talent in that secondary. They took Nate Wiggins last year, Marlon Humphreys there, Kyle Hamilton. The problem was that they couldn't get after the quarterback. And no matter how good your secondary is, if they got to cover for 3, 4, 5 seconds every single snap, they're going to let up pass yards. No cornerback can cover a receiver for 4 seconds every single play. So, that being said, getting James Pierce, he'll be able to get after the quarterback, which will take a lot of pressure off the Ravens secondary. So, I like going pass rusher for the Ravens every single time. James Pierce is on the board here. You got to take him. 28, we got the Lions going Jack Sawyer. There's a lot of popular picks in this mock draft, I'm realizing. Jack Sawyer, a lot of people like him on the Lions as a fit, just, character-wise with Dan Campbell as the head coach. Aiden Hutchinson's there. They need someone alongside with him. Jack Sawyer is probably one of the better edge rushers still on the board here. Could also see a Princely Mamiellen, Nick Scoreton still on the board. There's other options they could go, but Jack Sawyer just seems like a Lion. Really high floor player who can, stop the run and get after the quarterback. So it's a really good pick in my opinion. 29, we got the Commanders going Josh Connerly Jr., the tackle out of Oregon. A lot of people are going to hate on Josh Connerly because they've seen that one clip of the Senior Bowl where Mike Green demolished him. But, if you just take that play out, people have bad plays. He's a really good player. I think he's a first-round caliber player. The Commanders need a lot of help on that roster. I know they made it to the conference championship, but they got a lot of holes on that roster. They need offensive line help. They need probably another receiver, running back, edge rusher for sure. Secondary they could use. Like, there's a lot of holes on that roster. So really just take best player available. And I think Josh Connolly is one of the better players available. So I like that pick a lot. Number 30, we got the Bills going Nicky Manwari. They have DeMar Hamlin, and if he's starting, you're probably going to look to want to upgrade him. So Nicky Manwari, big-bodied safety at 6'3", 227. To begin the season, I thought he was going to have to transition to a linebacker just because of his size, but looks like he's going to stick to safety. Him being your DeMar Hamlin replacement, I like that a lot. And then coming in at number 31, we got the Chiefs going Nick Scourton. They need offensive tackle help, but it doesn't really seem like there's many offensive tackles still on the board. Do you want to reach on a guy like maybe an Ariante Erzuri or a Cameron Williams from Texas? Like, you could do that for sure. I could definitely see that happening, but if you don't want to take tackle, I think edge rusher is the next best option. Nick Scourton's a first-round caliber player. If he falls to you at 31, I think you got to take him. I know you got George Karlaftis. You got some other players on that defensive line. You took Felix Anudike-Uzomah a couple years ago. Doesn't seem like he's worked out. So getting a big-bodied edge rusher like a Nick Scourton on that Steve Spagnuolo defense, I like that pick a lot. And then rounding out the first round, we got the Philadelphia Eagles going Jahad Campbell. Zach Baun's a free agent. I think they're going to do everything in their power to re-sign Zach Baun. But if they don't, I think Jahad Campbell is a very, very solid option to go at the back end of this first round. Even if they do resign Zach Baun, I believe Nakobe Dean would be a free agent next season. Do they want to pay 2 linebackers? Probably not. So they could also take Jahad Campbell here, probably be the 3rd linebacker in that linebacking room his rookie season. You can let Nakobe Dean walk when he's a free agent and then have Jahad Campbell fill in. I think either way they could go Jahad Campbell. That's probably the most likely pick in my opinion as of, late February. But that's going to be the mock draft. Let me know what you guys think. I think it was a pretty chalk mock draft. I mean, having Will Johnson fall to 21 was pretty crazy, but, they had, Falcons going edge rusher like everyone does. Tyler Warren going to the Colts. Everyone does that. Ashton Genty, obviously, everyone goes him to the Cowboys. So it was a pretty chalk mock draft for the most part. But I think it was a good one regardless. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments. And as always, I'm the Draft Nerd, and thanks for watching.